Good morning, everybody. How are we this morning? Well, it's a cold one here in Appalachia this morning. We're out doing another video this morning. Glad that y'all could come along. Just want to thank y'all for the ones that subscribed to my channel first off, and liking this last video I did on the coal, going to get the coal. It's doing real well. Thank y'all so much for watching that. But today we're out on another excursion. We're going to go to Burke's Garden in Tazewell, Virginia, and doing a story on a family that got partially massacred and kidnapped and taken by the Shawnee, and two tragedies of one, actually. The rescuers, which was his name was Thomas Maxwell. He was a captain in the militia, military, and he ended up getting killed also. So there was actually two, a little baby named William and himself in this rescue effort to save the family. It was the wife and children of Thomas Ingles. They were from out of Burke's Garden over here, and we're going over today and look at that beautiful area over there and see where they lived, and we're going to trek back and go to this place where it all happened at, and then we're going to go back to where she was brought back after she was rescued, back to the fort there in Tazewell. So come along with me today, and this is going to be pretty exciting, I think. It's kind of sad, but very interesting, I think. So come along with me there. Let's get on this video. Folks, I was headed down into Burke's Garden. We had to come across this big long mountain, but man, the trees and stuff has been destroyed over here. It must have been when Helena came through. As you can see there on the hill, all of the big timber has been about destroyed. We're about 2 miles, I guess, from Burke's Garden. We've had to come across a big long mountain. Reminds me of back home. By the way, it's about 40 miles from here back to McDowell County in West Virginia. We're in Tazewell County, Virginia here now. That was a long trek for them to take Miss Ingles and her family back in this place we'll be going to later. But wow, look at the trees. It's unbelievable, the destruction over here. I know we had a lot of trees down in our area, but not nothing like this right here. Unreal. It's one beautiful place. They say it's like a bowl. This area is shaped like a bowl. It's about 10 miles long and 5 miles wide. Smuggled in between two big mountains. I can understand how they would be hidden over here for sure, because it's way over here out in nowhere land for sure. So let's we'll get down here and see if we can find this location. Get right back with you. Wow, folks, this is unbelievable how beautiful this is right here. This is Burke's Garden area. Get down here somewhere and see if we can find a historical marker anywhere. This is absolutely beautiful area in here. Wow. I can understand how a person would want to live here. That is for sure. Wow. One beautiful place. Well, we'll get somewhere down here and we'll see about doing this story here. Let you know what all happened in this beautiful place. Back in 1782, there were the two families that lived in this area. I think it was last name.
In 1 mile, the destination is on your left, Burke's Garden.
Yeah, 1 mile on the left. 1932, there was only two families that lived here. It was the Hickses, I think last name Hicks, and the Burke's family. Well, it was named Burke later, but it was the Ingles family, Thomas Ingles. All right, let's get them down here and see if we can see what happened here. Folks, this is absolutely stunning over in here. The video just don't show its real beauty over here. Well, you can understand why they would want to live here. It's absolutely beautiful. I never knew it looked like this over here. I've heard of it, but I've never been here. But I'm here today, trying to find a place to pull over. Found a sign that we can read and then go sit down. We'll do a story. But look at this, how beautiful this is out over here. This, say it's 5 miles wide and 10 miles long. It's just like a bowl. I always got a picture to show reference to it there. And it's beautiful, beautiful place. It says here, Burke's Garden, known for its fertility and great natural beauty. The bowl-shaped Burke's Garden is the highest valley in Virginia. James Burke discovered it in 1740 while hunting and settled here in about 1754. After 4 years, Burke and his family moved to North Carolina, where he died in 1783. The threat of Indian attack and the remoteness of the area discouraged permanently while settlements until the early 19th century. Wow. Just thought I'd show you that. We're gonna go sit down and tell a story about this this capture here. Okay, folks, I found a place to sit down and talk about this here. It's a beautiful place over here, but there's nowhere hardly to pull off. So I finally found a spot to sit down and talk about this. This was there's two really tragedies here of all this. Miss Ingles was captured from her home in Burke's Garden here from the Shawnee tribe, and was taken, her and her 3 children was taken a long journey, which is about 40 miles from here to back over in the county where I'm from, there to a place called Maxwell's Gap. And this gap was named after Thomas Maxwell, that was the captain which led the rescue of her safety. But he was killed on site with a skirmisher. We're going to get into that a little bit later when we go to that site. I was there a couple years ago and found, I think, where he's buried as a sunken grave there. Actually, him and her little son, little Thomas, is buried in the same grave with Mr. Maxwell. But anyway, this is what happened. Let me first get into him. Thomas Ingles is a veteran of the Point Pleasant expedition of 1774, a seasoned Indian fighter, and he was married to Ellen Grills in 1775. They lived in several locations before settling in Burke's Garden, a beautiful, bowl-like area. As we was talking about that area earlier, it was like 5 miles wide and 10 miles long. A beautiful place over here. She was abducted from her homestead in April of 1782. Miss Ingles and her 3 children was captured by a Black Wolf band of Shawnee, and by the rescue party to catch up with them. They skirmished that resulted in Thomas Maxwell's death. Was a terrible thing, and he's buried on site there. A little bit, like I said, we'll go there later. Here's what happened. On the 5th of April of 1782, Shawnee, under the leadership of Black Wolf, made a raid upon Burke's Garden and captured the family of Thomas Ingles. They concealed themselves until Ingles went out to the farm he was plowing and surrounded the home, made his wife and 3 children leave with them, and they took all that was in the house and in the cabin and set it afire and headed on their way. They was headed on to Ohio I guess maybe to trade or sell them or whatever there. And Thomas heard the cries of children and attracted his attention, so he came running back from the field and found that his home was afire. So he looked out and saw the Shawnee with their family, and there was too many for him to tackle all at once, so he rounded up some people. So he went to the nearest settlement, which was a long way off. And by the way, there was only 2 families lived there in that valley at that time. It was a Hicks and them at that time, and it was like 2 miles away. So they had to actually go to the North Fork of the Holston, which is in Saltville, Virginia, which is 38 miles here from Burke's Garden. And it was muster day for the Washington County Militia. And the settlers on the North Fork of the Holston assembled several, and they were being drilled by Captain Thomas Maxwell, who had formerly lived at the head of the Bluestone in Tazewell County. Maxwell, with a party of 15 or 20 volunteers, went with Ingles to Burke's Garden to pursue them. Wow. So this took several days just to get from Washington County, which is over into Saltville there, which is 38 miles from here, back over here to Burke's Garden. And then they have to trek over into my county, which is another 30-some miles, almost 40 miles, to get over there. So it took them about 5 days. So on their way, they had to go through a lot of bad crossings and a lot of growed up woods. It talked about all kinds of trees that was down and all that. But here we're going to talk just a little bit about what happened that day, and then we're going to go over to Maxwell's Gap and we're going to tell the rest of the story. All right. Okay, folks, so we're going to talk a little bit about Captain Thomas Maxwell. He was they say he was a great fighter. He was a great militiaman. He was born on the 28th of February, 1748 in Augusta, Virginia, the British colonial America. His father, Captain John Maxwell, was 28, and his mother was Margaret Mary Carson, was 25. He married Rebecca Harmon. They were the parents of at least 2 sons and 4 daughters. He died in May of 1782 in Maxwell's Gap, Tazewell, Virginia, which where I'm at was Tazewell back at that time, and it became West Virginia later on. His age was 34, a very, very young man. But we're going to go over there and get into what happened on that terrible morning, 82. So let's head over that way, and we will find out what happened to Captain Maxwell. Let's head over there. As you see, it's posted here, so we can't go in there. So we'll have to do our video from the road. We have posted signs, and we have the purple paint. That is no trespassing. So we won't do that. We'll just video from the road. We're at a place. This gap right here is called Maxwell's Gap, but we can't go there. About 7 or 8, 9 years ago I was here, but they got this lease now. There's no trespassing sign, so we don't trespass for sure. So we will not go there, but I do have a picture of the grave that I'll add in the description here. But yeah, this is it right there. That's the gap. Now, I traveled up this hill here before, and right in this gap up here, I found a grave to the left-hand side over there. And out through there, I found parts of arrowheads and flint. So more likely, this was an old campsite from way back, even before when this happened. But this happened in 1782. So we will tell a story about what happened here on that dreadful day with Thomas Maxwell and Miss Ingles. So it took them about 4 or 5 days to get here too. The militiamen with Thomas Maxwell from over at Burke's Garden. And from where we were earlier, it was around 40 miles from there too to here. So it took about 4 or 5 days to get here. And they came through trails, mountains, and through valleys to get here. It took them quite a while. It says after the 5th day of the capture, the advance scouts discovered that the Shawnee were camped for the night in a gap of Tug Mountain. See, Tug River's just down below us here a little ways. It was agreed that Maxwell should take half the men during the night and get in front of the Shawnee. Thomas Ingles would remain with the other half of the rear at daybreak, and simultaneously attack should take place. The night was very dark and the grounds were rough with brush and mountain laurel. Yeah, there's a lot of mountain laurel here. And so they were going to attack at daybreak. Well, Maxwell had failing to get to his appointed place on time. The Shawnee began to rouse from their slumber. Ingles determined to make an attack with his men. Wow. See, the transpired of the attack was made. So soon a shot was fired, and some of the Shawnee began to tomahawk their prisoners, while they had Miss Ingles and 3 of her children. So soon as the shot was fired, they began attacking prisoners and tomahawking them. Thomas Ingles rushed and seized his wife just as she received a terrible blow to the head with a tomahawk. She fell, covering the infant a few months old, which she held in her arms. The Shawnee had no time to devote to it. The tomahawk hit the little 5-year-old daughter named Mary and his 3-year-old son named William. The woman and the daughter escaped with the injuries. She was severely injured, and the baby too. But after tomahawking the Ingles children and making their escape, they ran close to Captain Maxwell and his party, firing on them, killed Captain Maxwell on sight. He was conspicuous of wearing a white hunting shirt. That looked like it would stand out a lot. They had mentioned that before. All right, wow. It says they remained on the grounds until late evening, burying Captain Maxwell, who was killed outright, Thomas Ingles' little son, William, who died from his wounds during the day. Mrs. Ingles and her little girl was still alive, although badly wounded. Wow. It says the little son, William, was buried in the same grave with Thomas Captain Maxwell. Wow. So I had found a grave up there, but we can't get to it because this is leased land, and you know all about leased land. So we're just doing our video for the road here, but it's about 300 or 400 yards above here in this low gap where it's at. But wow, so him and the little son of Thomas Maxwell was buried together up here. So Miss Ingles with her little daughter, severely injured, went back to Wine Fort at Locust Hill, and that's where we're going to go end out the video. That's where they took her back to a fort that was pretty close to Tazewell over there where she was from. But her and her family and Thomas ended up moving on into Tennessee, and that's where they continue to live throughout their life, from what I can see. So wow, that's something. So it was about 40 miles from here to Burke's Garden, then about that much from Burke's Garden to Saltville, which was Broad Ford, which they had a military fort there that they trained their militia, and that's where Captain Maxwell had to come from. He had to leave there with his men, come all the way back to Burke's Garden to get up with Thomas and them, and they headed on this way, which is another close to 40 miles. But we don't know really how far it actually is through the woods and through the mountaintops and stuff, you know, on trails. You know, this is driving with a vehicle, which took me right an hour and 15 minutes, which took them 4 days to get there on horseback. Wow, that's something. So while I was here before, that's been years ago and several years ago, before this was leased, I took my metal detector all around up there, and I never found any actual bullets or any type of lead, but I did find parts of arrowheads and pieces of flint. So it was a camp there at one time. So, and there is some sort of grave. I'll show the description of it. I think I got a picture of it that I took when I was there before. So let's go ahead and travel on to Locust Hill, and we'll finish this video up. So let's get on that way. So, so let's recap this whole thing. All I can say is wow. You get yourself captured from your home over in a beautiful place we were just at today. And you've walked, I know, 30, 40 miles with 3 children captured by the Shawnee Indian. Wow, can you imagine how strong of a woman she'd had to be in to endure it? Because, you know, there's been many of them I know that's done it. The other story I did on another lady, she done the same thing, but I just couldn't imagine. And where we were just at over there at Maxwell's Gap is very, very mountainous, and up there in that gap it's not, but it's very, very mountainous. It just bewilders me. But she did endure it, and her little girl, they made it through it all. Thomas Ingles went ahead and started their family again somewhere else in Tennessee, looks like. But you know, I mentioned earlier about worth noting, Thomas Ingles was a son of William and Mary Ingles. In the summer of 1756, this is a different account, Mrs. Mary Ingles and her 2 young sons, Thomas and George, were taken captive by the Shawnee at the massacre of Draper Meadows. See, that's a different one altogether. Miss Ingles escaped along with a Dutch, Pennsylvania German woman, and was one of the great epic determinations and endurance made her way to the cabin of Adam Harmon on the New River. After she rested for several days, Harmon took her to the fort at Dunkard Bottom, where the following day her husband William Ingles and her brother John appeared as on cue. Youngest son George died in captivity, but her son Thomas was raised among the Shawnee for 13 years, until 1768, when he was ransomed by his father for $150. Thomas was well educated. He studied violin and with Thomas Jefferson. Wow. And returned to the life of the white settlers. John P.H. Hale in the Trans-Allegheny Pioneer says of Thomas Ingles, he was a very much of a wild Native American in his habits when he first returned, notwithstanding he was humored and family loved him well. But a wild fit overcome him every now and again, and he would wander off alone in the wilderness for days and days at a time with his bow and arrow, stay gone for a long time. When he returned, he gave no account for himself or explanation where he'd been. Wow. So, life was a lot different back then, that's for sure. All right, we're going to go on over yonder to to the fort, Wines Fort, and finished the video out where Miss Ingles was taken after Maxwell's gap here. We'll catch you in a bit. Miss Mary Ingles was brought back to after her long journey from Burke's Garden over into McDowell County. Actually, it was Tazewell County at that time, and where her babies was murdered, and she had to leave there, and they brought her back to Wines Fort here in Tazewell County, at Locust Hill. And then later on, Mary and Thomas moved into Tennessee, where they then continued their lives. So folks, I just want to thank you so much for coming along with me on this long journey. It was an interesting journey for sure. So we thank you so much for coming along. We'll see you next time on Appalachian Roots with Dan. Catch y'all later.